them. So my name is Erica Lester. This endeavor to help women around the world has been something that's been a lifelong thing for at least the last 10 years. So not lifelong in terms of the endeavor, but lifelong in terms of my life story, my life history. Why this is such a powerful thing for me is I'm a two-time divorcee. I do desire still to be married. That's not my time right now. So I have a lot of relevant experience, not only in just business, but in life, having been through those relationships. See, a lot of women desire to be married, but they have not the first clue of the sacrifice that is going to entail. But not only that, it's just collaborating your life with someone else and bringing two separate individuals to one platform to try to make that life work. But along this particular journey and picking up all of that pain, we have turned that into prosperity. And now we are able to heal, recover, and teach others how to navigate this particular way of life. This young man before us, Mr. Jubril Wilson, how I met him is through his wife. We have mentors through Path to Prosperity with Ash Cash, Storm Leroy, and Marvin Mitchell. And one of Ash Cash's things was a 6-hour author challenge, where I met Takesha, and she was talking about what books she wanted to bring forth that her spirit had about helping women. And I immediately heard the voice of the Lord say, you need to work with her. So I reached out to her, and by reaching out to her, I got a 2+1 bonus. Jubril came online, and we've been building this partnership, and we joined another mentorship program, Marvin Mitchell's Wealth Creators, and here we are. So Takesha and I will possibly have something special soon, but in the interim, we're just going to bring her power forward supporter, Jubril, to the stage to teach you and show you what the support of a wonderful husband looks like. I know as a woman, that is the one key trait that every woman would put on their list that they wanted in a man, let alone in a husband, is to be supported. It's like, I don't need you to be in my way. I just need you to be on my team. And that support element is something that's very rare. And to see it activated and working in the lives of young people has just been so impressive. So I'm so blessed and so grateful, so thankful to be along their journey with them, to see that. You see it in older people all the time who've been married for like a number of years, but to see it in a young couple, I mean, that's pretty powerful. But I'll let Jubril tell you more about himself, and then you'll see how amazing he is and why this is such a great thing that the Lord is doing in both of our lives.
Okay. I mean, you want to just ask me a question? I mean,
sure. So tonight we're talking about I'm not Barbie, or I'm not your Barbie. So we grew up playing with dolls. And what does that play look like and consist of? We play with dolls because it teaches us how to be mothers. And we have the dream of getting married, and we can tell you what our reception is going to be like, what do we want our dress to be like, how many bridesmaids we have, and all that thing. But nobody teaches you how to be a wife. Older women are supposed to teach us how to be wives. But men, they grew up playing with toys such as trucks and soldiers. They aren't taught to be husbands. They're taught to go work. If you look at the, semblance of what those toys actually represent. So while we have this whole dream of getting married, not the marriage, but the actual ceremony, men are like, what? I thought we were just supposed to date. Okay, well, I guess if I'm just going to claim you as my wife. And so we run the risk of stumbling through life. And by the time we figure those things out, it's much further down the road. And now we're living life and trying to figure out, who am I? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And I have this man that I'm making all these sacrifices for, but what about me? And it's not about you, because you put the both of you in front of that. And now you're just trying to figure out how to work that thing out. So Jubril is so special because what we want to do is get the male perspective. Women talk to each other all the time and try to figure these things out. But the one thing I always said, even to my husband, is when I was married, is I can talk to them, but I need you to answer me. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time talking to women about a problem I had with the one person that could help me solve it. And so not having that male perspective, you'll be thinking because you can cook, clean, bake, and all this other stuff, that is the makeup of a good woman. And it's part of it, but it's not all of it. So from your perspective, Jubril, you shared with us a little bit last night, which is so good and delicious. I said, what does a Barbie doll mean to you? And you did talk about your affection for Little Shortcake, but I mean, I like the Little Shortcake, but I just loved how you started talking about how superficial a Barbie is. So if you can continue to share a little bit more about that.
Sure. What you were saying something about, I said that I like strawberry shortcake growing up. I sniffed strawberry shortcake and the blueberry muffin. I don't know if people remember those toys, but I'd say that a Barbie to me, and when we think of a Barbie, most men is a trophy piece and someone who's on the outside looks really nice, but maybe inside could be empty or not have a lot of substance. So that's what we think of as a Barbie. And I mean, you know how they say that the dumb blonde and Barbie, the original Barbie was blonde, long hair, bright eyes, and a certain build, and that was it. But that's not reality. So if you're a woman who's real, then it's not going to look like Barbie. And even if on the outside like Barbie, you want to have your inside be even better and greater, because that's where the sustainability carries in a relationship and everything else you do in your life.
Absolutely. So in your history, I mean, I know you're married to the beautiful Takesha, but before then, I'm sure you've run across a few Barbies in your day. What was that experience like for you? And did you know the difference when you were dating them?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely knew the difference. I mean, it just depended on what season it was for me in my life. Men have different seasons in their lives. And sometimes I wanted a Barbie. Sometimes I would change up and just say they don't have to be a Barbie, but have some substance. But whatever season I was in was really a reflection of who I was at the time. Therefore, if I were only concerned with looks, Barbie, then I was always focused on how I look. I wouldn't leave the house until I got my hair cut. Everything had to be a certain way. And if it were not, I wasn't leaving the house. So I was kind of trying to be the kin. If I wanted a person with more substance or more spiritual, then I would definitely frequent more church events. I mean, I was looking at different single ministries and just going around. And so that's where, if I wanted someone who liked to party, then I would start going to more concerts or clubs.
Wow.
It's dependent on where I was in life. If I wanted someone I felt was more intellectual, I might go to a museum, or I might go to the library and just hang around and study instead of studying at home. Or Starbucks and just write. And I would always flex, because when somebody's really into academics, it even matters what kind of computer you had. So I knew I had an Apple, so I'd make sure I had the Apple posted up so they could see, and then somebody may come over and ask me about my Apple computers. So it just depended upon what environment or who I was at the time. But whoever I was definitely who I was going to attract.
Right. See, ladies, here's the thing that is so powerful about what he just said. Men are very strategic and they know exactly what they want and why they do. So while you're out running around thinking like, oh, he's cute, this. See, the thing about it is we imagine the potential of a man. Like, oh, he looks good. This is that. Oh, he's so cute. I love the way he says my name. And I mean, we can just put you, I call it cookie cutter situations. Like, we already know what we want. We are just waiting to slap that Ken doll right in the situation and move on about life. But men are like, no, I just need her for this period of time right now. So is it true? The burning question has always been for most women. Do you know your wife when you meet them?
You mean men, or you, as you said?
No, I'm saying women always,
Oh,
they want the perception of, he met me, our eyes met, we fell in love on sight, all of that. But men are known to have, or it's perceived that men know when they meet the woman they want to be with. Is it that quick, or is it just more like a transitory thing?
you saying? Are you asking me? You asking? Or do men know? Do we know?
Yes, for the ladies, right? Do men really know? Because see, you don't really know the person till after 90 days. All that initial magic's going to wear off. 6 months, you know what you really have. The representative cannot hold. They cannot make it up anymore. The energy of it, they're not going to put in the same energy. I got to put in the same time. So really 6 months is, okay, I know this person is not here to toy with me.
Well, I would say that question, I wouldn't say 100% of the time, because you're not 100%. So
Right.
whatever you think you want, you're still evolving and growing. So what you want today may not be what you want tomorrow. So I would say that, again, who you are today, maybe you may find that that's the person you wanted, but you may get married to someone and then you notice that you quote unquote outgrow each other.
Right.
Oh, it's not you're not the same person. They're not the same person. Because if someone is staying still, they're moving backwards. So they're not growing. And that's with anything in life. So if that person is doing the same things when you met them 2 years later, in the type of information age that we're in, you could, I mean, a guy could end up chat GPT and some AI female thing that he created just to have the communication to stimulate them. So, I mean, I've seen some of these things happen. And so, I mean, it's to be taken away from a chat bot, just like a job. You see, if you don't stay on top of your game, you could be phased out by AI, but that can be the same thing with a relationship or dating. And that's real. So maybe I'm supposed to say that, but it's the truth. And can you imagine a robot taking your husband from you or your boyfriend?
Awesome, awesome sauce. So here's some things how you can identify that you are the Barbie. He
That you
picks
are
you up.
Barbie?
No, for the ladies, he picks
Right,
you
no,
up.
right.
Right. You like, we like to be wine and dine. It's a great time. Take you out for nice dinners and all of those things. But I want to know if you know the top 5 people in his life, and have you been introduced to them? Because you just might be the Barbie. Or maybe you're the cereal toy. This is just a season. He's feeling like Frosted Flakes.
Oh, cereal.
Or the Cracker Jack box toy. Oh, it's just a snack. You're just a snack. So I think part of it is just identifying where you are in life so that you know what you want and you don't settle, because you cannot go backwards. And we get dazed and confused because we're like, the representative you gave that I fell in love with is not the real man. So now you're like having buyer's remorse, but to not be embarrassed, you keep saying, well, we've been together for 6 months. We've been together for 1 year. We've been together for 2 years. Listen, this is life or death. So being with the wrong person can kill your destiny. That's how serious this is. And so if that means if you're walking along for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that's really okay, because you don't want to ever settle for less than what you want. And it's superficial. You need someone that you can partner with, right? That's going to understand you. Well, that's going to take time. It would be great to get married in a year, but imagine getting married to the wrong person. See, I did that. I didn't wait for that. I lowered the bar so that people could have a chance, but my standard was always my standard. And people have, men especially, have a way of always chasing behind something that they are not qualified to receive. You're a woman outside her league. There's something about you that was different from the regular one, the typical one. But you have to be grounded in, this is who I am, and I need somebody to partner with. See, for me personally, that's a leader, not the man that is standing in my way, but the man that is supporting me, that says, I recognize in you that you're purpose for this. And I'm going to do everything I can to support you. Because as women with those dolls scenario, we are taught to love, to nurture, to care for. And so if we give you something, AKA our heart, we give everything with it. There is no holding back. It's not like I'm going to give you a sliver of my life. I'm going to give you a piece of my life. I'm going to give you all of my life. But now I'm looking at the exchange model. I'm like, return to sender. Oh, I can't, because I don't want to get divorced because I'm going to be embarrassed. Even if other people know about your relationship or the situation, maybe it's infidelity, maybe it's something else, but I can't, because we've been together for so long and we have this kid together and whatever that might be. Now you're worried more about what other people think, but this is your life. Why are you going to do that? So, ladies, what questions do you have? We have this awesome man to help us out. And I'm going to unmute everyone here so that we can get some feedback.
Sure.
Small.
I don't see, no one has any questions.
No one has.
So this is Coach Rosie, and I thinking about what you're talking about, Erica. Thank you. I think it's such an awesome topic. I'm not your Barbie, and but I want to bring in like when you think about how you're raised, like the images that you've seen in your own environments, um, what what we perceived as marriage. It could have been your parents, grandparents, great grandparents, aunts, uncles, and what we saw wasn't, or I shouldn't say we, but I know for myself, things that I may have seen in my own environment had nothing to do with marriage per se. It was more just traditional things that women did and that men did. Never really seeing the marriage conversations, right? Like I have this friend some years back who's Caucasian, and when she started having children, she talked about how she and her husband sat down and had conversations about that as part of their marriage, right? And that was literally the first time I ever heard someone say that they had conversations about when they were going to have kids and how many they were going to have. Those were conversations that I recall as kids, to what you spoke to earlier. You're playing with the dolls and you're talking to your cousins or your friends, and you're saying, as a little girl, I'm going to have two kids, a boy and a girl, but no one ever taught that that was something that you should have conversations about. So marriage was seen on television, maybe perhaps like myself in real life. It was perceived as the job duties, not necessarily the communication that families or husband and wives had to sort of structure their marriage and to talk about the things that they desired to do. So, and I don't know if that's just a black thing, or if it's throughout, all races as part of marriage. But definitely, I know from my own personal experience and environment, um, communication was never really part of what we did. It was what we it was more about the job duties that the woman portrayed and the man portrayed. So, Jubril, I'd like your your thoughts on that.
Of the duties, I would say that's
Just on the fact that that it's part of I think what we saw or I saw as marriage, not necessarily what marriage really was, but it was a representation of what marriage was.
right. Well, I mean, when I think about it, I think of the TV shows, and most of the TV shows had the man working hard. If it were something that, let's say, it was usually two kids, at least two kids. I mean, I'm thinking about Leave the Beaver. I mean, different shows, and the wife was always the nurturer. So you see that, and she would fix the plate. If there were a problem, now she would team up with the children to hide it from the father, and he'd be the one all upset. So that's the role of what I saw. The man, it seemed like, wasn't the best communicator. So growing up, I always felt that the man or the father would find out about everything last. If something broke, they might hide it in a closet and you wouldn't find out what happened to the end. But so growing up, I decided I didn't want to be the last person to find something out in my family. I would want my children or my daughter to tell me first, so I would understand and be real with it. So, and then I always thought about how I was as a child, and just knowing that those same things, when I'm 10 and I'm now 35, my 10-year-old is going to probably think like I thought at 10. Or it's just saying, having that realistic mindset. But definitely, you're right when you say that the wife was portrayed as the one who took care of everything in the house. And it's changed now. I mean, the woman could be the boss. I mean, the situation, I just got back from an event and the roles are a little different. This is called the Black Rockefellers. And Dr. Tamara is the one who really holds the family together. The husband knows his role as the head of the household, but the two young sons all work together. But she is the person who's the breadwinner of the family. So it's definitely has changed in the last 20 years.
And again, that speaks back to a marriage as a role, right? Like, right? But what are the components of marriage? What really makes marriage? I mean, certainly understanding one another's positions, right, in the household. However, as I spoke earlier about the Caucasian friend who talked about communication was sitting down and talking about how many kids you're going to have, and, how much money we're going to save, and what we're going to do with this and what we're going to do with that. Those were not things that I recall seeing, whether on TV or in in my own life with aunts, uncles, and so forth. So I think that it causes a great divide when two people get married, not truly understanding what marriage is, as Erica talked about.
Mhm.
Erica, what would be some suggestions that you would have that you would say marriage should consist of?
Absolutely, Coach Rosie, and I just loved what you said. I mean, you hit the nail on the head across the board. It actually is a cultural thing. I was just thinking, for us, for African Americans, we don't typically sit down and have real conversations from parents to children and as a household to talk about the budget, finances, roles. And so there's more of a perceived concept of marriage. And usually what will happen is oops moments. Oh, I have this baby on the way, or some other reason, like, well, I'm looking at it financially and it makes sort of sense. I've been with this person together, but they haven't worked on the relationship. And it just seemed like, well, the next progression is let's get married, but not talk about what is our plan. It's kind of like I was in church last night and the pastor was saying about the pool of Bethesda. It's like you got to the pool, but you didn't have a plan for your pool. What was the plan once you got healed? So we don't have a plan for marriage. Whereas I, have the privilege of being in a lot of different clients' lives with different nationalities and backgrounds. And this unique difference for them is when it comes to their kids getting married, they have the plan. They're like, we're saving up this money for this person to be married. They adopt, like, if that's their daughter, and this is the guy to date their daughter. I mean, they take that guy on their family trips. He comes to their vacations and all those things. So like they'll date in college and they have the plan. We have this money set aside for the wedding. We have this money set aside for when they are going to get married and help them buy their first home. They're not even talking about renting, like them being responsible on their own. They're basically helping them with the plan. That doesn't happen in our households. There's not that's like a family business for them. That's also how they keep generational wealth going, is because they take the time to plan that out. They're meeting with the pastor when they're dating. And so even through the college years, by the time they get married, then they have a plan that all of the family members support financially and spiritually, as well as being that person. I mean, my one colleague talked to her daughter's boyfriend more than she talked to her daughter when they were in college. And guess what? 4 years later, 2 months ago, the daughter totally drops that guy. His parents were into this plan. He's devastated. Her parents are devastated, but the girl is now making the money that she wanted to make. I saw the independent spirit, like, I don't think Savannah's going to really want to do business with this young man. But his whole life plan over the last 5 years has been marrying their daughter and bringing her to his home, them purchasing a home. So I think it's just in the structure of a relationship that we're missing. So we need to teach young kids and anybody within our purview of influence. We need to give them the tools that we never had, because we could save them years of trauma, emotional baggage, and just understanding themselves before they couple that with joining another person to their lives. They really need to understand it's a partnership that's meant to be lifelong, and you'll grow together, which prevents you from growing apart. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you for
Hi, Erica. Hi, that was really good what you said. I think another part is, especially in our community, is to make sure that there is a process of healing, as far as counseling. Like you said, you work on a plan of marriage, work on a plan of the business part. And as you just gave an example of the couple, and it seemed like they didn't take time to really hear the young lady. But in addition to that, what I've learned, or just what I've seen and I personally experienced, that there's a large healing process that needs to go on, and that needs to be looked into, for both people that are planning to get married. You have to look at that childhood trauma to see if anything is there that needs to be processed before you come together. And not saying that everything will be worked out and you're 100% all together when you get married, but you have a full understanding of each other's backgrounds, what you've experienced, and that you're willing to walk together to continue that place of healing. And that's also a big misconception. Like you said, you can have the money, you can have the wealth, you can have the plan, but if there's still unresolved trauma on both parts, it's still going to be a lot of issues.
Absolutely. You bring an excellent point. What makes this particular situation unique is they're Catholic. And I did not know this, but I came to know this by being, connected to them. Is in the Catholic Church, they go before the priest and they have to do years worth of counseling before the priest signs off on them getting married, which I'm like blown away by, because if we had that same approach, we wouldn't have a divorce rate as high as it is in our community. The thing about that young lady is she was part of the plan, but the independence that I want to point out that I saw in her is the young man was always jealous. He was always controlling, and all the things that I know that long term, after she got more time to know herself, because it was like her first major boyfriend and a whole host of different things. I told her mom, I was like, I said, once she knows who she is and she has what she wants, which for her, that was, I graduated from college, I'm in the career field, I got the offer letter of the money I want, I won't need him. Because for him, this young man was going to biochemistry, top grad, all those things that would have been a supreme breadwinner for them. And that's why the parents, both the sets, were so excited, are the possibilities that they both be winning for generational wealth. But for her, once she solidified her own, and she had time to go out and experience being in a career field with like-minded individuals and being exposed to men of renown and different things like that, she realized her own power, and she did not want to stay in the small space he would have provided, because he was her first in every area. And now that she's gotten a taste of the world, it's like, no, I don't think I want to do this. I'm going to give myself the time and the flexibility to make sure what I want out of the deal is what I'm going to stick to my guns about. And so even though it didn't work out for well, on their plan they initially had, it works out well for her because she would have been unhappy in that marriage. He would have put her in a little box, tied a nice little bow around it, and she just would have had the 2 kids and looked at her life 5 years later. Yes, I'm in a career, but look at all these sacrifices I'm making. I don't feel like I get the support from him because you cannot have a jealous mate. And that's what she would have had. Now she has the freedom to find out who she is and then make that life choice. And she did. Her choice was like, I'm in this relationship so I can live my life.
Wow.
And sometimes that's hard to make. I mean, like I said, it's about you worrying about what someone else would perceive or be the problem or be the solution, if you will. Like, honestly, the heart for myself, it was very hard to look at like, oh, I am the common denominator in 2 marriages. I can't believe that this man that I did not establish a plan B with, this man that I love, that I could not have said I would not be with him. There was no backup plan. So I'm looking at all the time we had in together. And I'm also looking at, well, we don't have the issues that marriages fail over. That's not our issue. The issue was, and I would explain it the way that my counselor said it to me post-marriage. He said, Erica, this wasn't about you. He just didn't want to be married anymore. Like, this isn't, he wanted to just be free. If he could have you without being married, that would be okay. But that's not what he wants. So in order to not get out of the marriage, that means that you are a casualty as part of the process. So he said, well, can you describe for me, now that you heard that, how do you feel? And I said, abandoned. And he said, very good, but let me add another word to it. He said, emotionally abandoned. And it was just like, man, having that clarity helped me say, look, I can look over the next 5 years of my life. Well, here are the sacrifices I was making to be in this marriage with him. But I can tell you my life has far exceeded where I would have been had I stayed in that relationship and let that marriage that I thought was so forever continue. And that is the part that you have to be aware of. Don't be the Barbie. Don't live a superficial life based on someone else's expectation, even if the expectation comes from the person you said you wanted to spend the rest of your life with.
And I love what Takesha said as well. That was beautiful, you guys. Coming from I guess the trauma, right? Like, I think in African American communities, you just spoke about, what your therapist said. Most African Americans are like, I don't need a therapist, or they refuse to go to a therapist. And I think many times we don't realize, or we know that there are some things that are there that we hide, that we grow up with, that have, touched us in a way that has robbed or raped us of the life that we truly would have wanted. And we walk around bruised and wounded and all of those things, without completely, or without ever healing. And so whether it is the divorce of, your parents when you were younger, and what effect that may have had on that child, or, it could have been a lot of other things that could have happened in a family that caused that trauma. And I think many times not really realizing that you are walking in that trauma. And that is the reason why when 2 people come together, they both have these issues. If it's abandonment from, divorce on both sides, or it could be one person never dealt with the divorce, but was born out of wedlock, right? Like born out of wedlock, the other one, parents divorced. So you have one who's dealing with this you know, uh, daddy is gone, daddy never loved me, daddy was never around. And then you have the other one was, you know, daddy was around. You know, I remember my dad. He's always been there, and now all of a sudden he's not. So these two people now in their marriage are boxing it out, right? Like they don't realize they are. And just because you don't fight or really fuss with one another doesn't mean that you're not really fighting. Every day you're fighting off the demons that have held you captive and causing friction within a family. And I know for men, if you talk about therapy, they look at you like you're crazy, right? Like more women, I think, are doing therapy now, but um, you know, that was never something that you mentioned. It's becoming a bit better now, but I think that men still have a difficult time dealing with, you know, any emotional trauma that they may have faced during their childhood, and you know, and carrying that into their adulthood. And maybe Jabril, you could sort of speak to that as a gentleman, um, maybe not for yourself, or if it is for yourself, but maybe other gentlemen that you know who, you know, may refuse therapy or refuse to even talk about things that may have happened, um, you know, when they were growing up that may affect their marriages now.
You have to unmute yourself, Jabril.
All right. I said I can address that. I was married before and had a divorce. So I had to go through therapy, or I didn't feel like I had to, but it was highly suggested that I did. Growing up as a child, that was the first time I had therapy because I was adopted. So I had a stepfather, grew up with a family where I had seen my mother married. By the time she was with my stepfather, that was her third marriage. So I have seen people get married, divorce, but I felt that my mother was still happy, but I had to go through counseling during that process. So the next time going through counseling was when I had a divorce. And it was helpful. And because I felt like a failure, I think that we also during the process went through counseling to try to save the marriage, but probably wasn't the person I was supposed to be with anyways. So I had to accept it as maybe it was a mistake, but I don't want to look at it as a mistake because I had a wonderful 19-year-old daughter. It's been a blessing to my life. And it's the only reason why every year in June, I get to have someone say Happy Father's Day to me, or multiple people say it. So I don't look at things as a mistake, more as a miracle because of my daughter. But the counseling did help, but I had to, again, I even said earlier that the person that you are, maybe when you get married, or who you see at that time for that person may not be who it is then, or that representative is no longer there. So I had to make that decision after 4 years to let it go. But just like you may know that you're supposed to be in something at first, maybe within a year, you know that you shouldn't. So even before you get in it and say you still got in it, you still need to know that you got to get out of it, even though it says that you're married. And again, I don't know if I would be alive today if I would have still stayed in that marriage. I definitely wouldn't be on this call today if I stayed in that marriage.
It's so good. You know, Jabril, you brought up something very interesting. You did have a male in your life, and I think the other part why men are so desensitized about therapy and things like that are as a result of being raised by a woman and the man not being in the home, because you know that man teaches you not only how to be a man, but to be a father, to be responsible, so many things. So sometimes it's not even that anything bad happened. You just could be missing something key, like a parent, you know, that the mother did a great job, is the bomb mom, but she can't not be dad. She just can't be.
I liked it, the bomb mom. But again, I was adopted. I didn't realize I was adopted. And I found out through looking at TV, I was looking at different strokes. Like even when I got older, Punky Brewster, Silver Spoons, Brady Bunch, and I saw the Blended Family. And one day I sat at the table and asked my parents, am I a doctor or is this my real father? And then everything, it just felt like one of those moments on the TV show where the music did it. And I mean, you could hear the fork and knife, everybody just stopped. And I looked around and they looked at each other and they said, yes. And for years, I was receiving these letters in the mail every Christmas, every birthday that would wish me happy birthday and Merry Christmas, but it would just say this name Rashid, and I didn't know who it was. So my name was also changed to Wilson. My original name was Jubril Wilson. So I struggled as a young man, a boy, of my identity. Who am I? And it took a while to accept myself. You can't expect anybody to accept you if you can't accept yourself and know who you are. So how are you going to, who do you answer to? What do you answer? People were even calling me all kinds of names. So I didn't understand it. So of course, I'm saying that these are blocks that are built. So imagine when you come into manhood and you see someone and you want to get married. So I was already, at the time I met Takesha, I'd already been engaged 3 times. Yes. So one young lady was in college where I felt that I got love, or I was tired of playing around. I was also trying to escape from being all over the place. So it was a few reasons why sometimes men will prematurely do what they think is expected, or they're trying to save themselves from other things. So that's definitely not a reason why you want to get married, because that's not going to last long and you can't hide from reality. So that relationship didn't last. I was a freshman in college when I got engaged the first time. And of course, that drove my mother crazy. The second time, the next 2 women were Nigerian because my biological father was Nigerian. So I was trying to find a way to relate to him, and it was the closest thing. I still hadn't met him, and I didn't get to meet him until I was 26. But once I met my biological father, I had to fly out to meet him, and I was with the young lady, and I wanted his approval, who was Nigerian, and he looked at me and said, that's not the one. Now, I understand I never met him till I was 26, but he knew something, and he told me that I was brilliant. He told me to go back to school and stop playing around. He didn't say he would send me to school, but he said, go back. So I went back, finished 2 years with the MBA. So he was the type, when my mother could do all of these things for me, but he had this calming voice, and he'd say one thing and I would just do it. So I went home, enrolled for the MBA program at Frostburg State, finished within 2 years, and just remember that he told me I was brilliant. And it meant a lot to me. And within 2 or 3 months, the young lady had passed. I mean, not passed, excuse me. The young lady and I, the relationship was over.
Wow, Jubril, that was so awesome. So transparent, so clean, so fresh. If all men were built like you, that would be great. I want to go back to what you said that I think is so powerful. And I want to ask you this. Okay. When your biological dad said to you, this is not the one, and to tell you directly to stop playing around, did it feel like it had been 26 years that you lost or missed anything? Or did it just feel like, this is my father and I can trust what he's saying to me?
I felt like this is my father, and I felt like it was saying to me. I mean, you know I'm a jokester. This guy was a jokester. I mean, he's raw. I'm telling you. And this, I mean, like I said, we can be real. When I first met him, I mean, he laughed, and we went to the bathroom. I'll never forget it. And I was using the bathroom, and I noticed that, I mean, I don't know if I can say this, but I'm just gonna be, he used the bathroom. He stood all out, like he's posing, using the bathroom. So I'm more leaning in because I'm looking at him. Oh, so I'm leaning forward because I see how he is. And then this guy just would say anything. And he tried to grab me to pull me back while I'm using the bathroom. Like, get off me. And then he looks at me. He says, you must have got that from your mother. And I said, what the, I mean, you know, he doesn't know me that well. This is the first time we're meeting, but I said, wow, you know, it was funny, but it was a good moment. And we bonded. And I probably only saw him 2 more times before he passed in 2021 in January. But whatever he said to me, it gave me life. And Takesha got a chance to speak with him over the phone when we first got together. And I think he told her she was brilliant, but he had a way of saying something that was real. And if he felt that he would say it, he wouldn't say it if he didn't believe it. Very, very brilliant man. He had a PhD and he was a medical doctor. So just imagine as an African, a true African American. I mean, he had tribal marks on his face to go through what he did. Nobody gave him anything to get that. But I mean, he liked a lot of women. He only was married one time to my mother. And the rest, so I have 6 other siblings. I'm the oldest, and we're kind of blended. I have German sisters. I mean, you know, it's a lot. But those are the things that I learned to not do, because he did pass with no money, but with all that education.
Wow, I'm one of 7 too. Welcome to the club.
Really? 7, all right. All right.
I'm
Are you
the
the
oldest
oldest?
girl, but I'm number 2.
Oh, you're not the oldest. You're the oldest. You're not the oldest
Oldest girl, but I'm number 2.
Cool. Right. Right. So it's a
Well,
big responsibility with that as well. And but I didn't get the chance. That's a regret. I think that a lot of men, before getting married, should talk to men who are married or talk to more real men. So it helps them, because your mother or the women influence can't tell you certain things or prepare you for certain things as a man, as a husband, as a boyfriend. All of those things, you need to do it. And even as a male friend, just how do you operate as a male friend versus the guy who just wants to talk to you and it's always agenda. Being a great male friend, and women being a great woman friend is amazing, because it gets you in practice and position. So when you have some, because one thing you don't want is to be married and you have this quote unquote best friend, and they get all of they get the real you, and the person you're married to doesn't know. They don't really know you. They don't know the difference between if you do drink soda, do you like Sprite or do you like 7-Up? They just don't know the difference. They don't, because they don't really know you. And that takes time. It takes transparency, communication, and having that connection.
Jubril, you talked about, this is Coach Rosie again, I'm sorry. You
Sure.
talked about just now preparation, right? Like, you know, finding someone who can sort of help to prepare you for that. One of the conversations I've had with some folks is, I believe that men or women, we should prepare for marriage if you hope one day to be married, right? So we prepare for so many things, but that's one of the things that I think many people just sort of leave up to happenstance, right? Whatever happens just happens. And you know, if you're single, your bachelorette party or your bachelor's party is not preparation for marriage, right? Like there should have been some things before marriage that occurred long before that you are no longer doing. In other words, like, you know, if we were the clubbing type, and you know, always going out, always, you know, with this guy, that guy, or vice versa, when do you stop that before you get married, right? And usually when you've met someone, um, is the time that we've sort of said we've stopped it. But in actuality, that's really not out of your system, right? Like you haven't had any real practice time, like not really doing those things. And in many cases, we haven't really prepared ourselves for marriage. And I think that, you know, that's part of, I think it's a little bit detrimental to relationships when you have not sort of practiced celibacy. You haven't stopped, you know, hanging out late at night and you know, going out with friends and whatever. So, and then in the marriage, all of a sudden, most women think that that should sort of end. At least I believe so.
Hmm.
But men tend to continue with their lives, right? Like they're still hanging out with their friends, they're playing basketball, they're going to games, they're doing all sorts of things, where women are like, okay, I'm home now, I got to do this, got to do that, got to clean up, got to go to work, right? And in some cases, not in all, of course, but in my circle, I know that most women sort of stop doing the things that they were doing because their friends may still be single, but guys will still hang out. They could be married and they'll still hang out with single guys, right? And think that it's like not a big deal. But for most women, it's like, okay, I can't do that anymore. I'm not hanging out with my single friends. I'm married now, right? Like, so, but I think that there should be some real preparation, not this sort of instant preparation where, okay, I just met you, so now I'm not going to do that. And I think Erica spoke to it in the beginning, that what my parents would call courting time,
Mm.
right? That courting time has ended, and now what, right? Like you're going back to, I want to go hang out with my friends and do the things that I used to do. And that of course causes a lot of friction, but
Hmm.
I just think there should be some preparation, real preparation. If I ever married again, I'm married now, but if I had ever married again, that would be like, how long have you prepared for like marriage? And what does that consist of?
Right. Coach Rosie, this is Sakisha. I think you said so much in that, and a lot of people, that's the other part of the preparation for marriage. So you got to prepare your heart. You got to go through your past trauma. Of course, being on the same page as the person that you're going to be married to, but then you have to talk about those things as far as, what is your life going to look like when you're married? Do you still want to have single friends or hang out with single friends? Or do they speak the same language? And most of the time they do not. So all of those things have to be considered and they have to be taken into account. And then, like you said, with the preparation piece, as far as what I call is detoxing, and that's something that's near and dear to me. I didn't know that I was detoxing at that time, and what I meant by that is just saying, okay, I'm not going to sleep with anyone anymore. I'm going to wait until I'm married. I'm going to get my heart clear. I'm going to get my mind clear. I'm going to do this thing according to my morals and my values. And I think a lot of people don't really know, as Jubril mentioned, they don't really know who they are. They haven't established what are their morals, what are their values for marriage or for a relationship. I think they have this as Erica said, this Barbie and Ken view of what the world set it out. But what perspective are you looking from marriage? And so as the whole time as everyone was talking, I'm thinking we really have to go back to the kingdom perspective, the kingdom of God, of kingdom marriages. And even if people on here, they don't really believe in God, but you have to have something that you have that you follow as a standard, that will really set you on the right track of what you want as far as a marriage and to be fulfilled and to be happy. Is everything going to be perfect? No, but you just have to come to that common ground. And a lot of people, they go into marriage, they don't have any morals or values, or it's not clearly identified. They haven't taken that time to heal and detox from all of the hurt, the pain, the childhood trauma. And they just go into this marriage because it's like, oh, I want somebody to take care of me, or my biological time clock is ticking. I'm tired of being alone. And you really need to take that time to say, who am I? What do I really want? What is my standard? What are my morals? What are my values? And to all along with everything else as far as the planning, the wealth building and all of that. And then there are expectations that are unassumed that has to be discussed, and sometimes it's not discussed. And then you get married and you find out, okay, well, this is what I was thinking, and the other person's thinking this is what I'm thinking, but it was never discussed or said. So following that common ground. And then one other thing that I wanted to say is just paying attention to those what we call generational curses, or some things that have happened from generation to generation. As Jubril mentioned, that his mom was married 3 times for the third time. I've come from a family where there was broken marriages, there was infidelity, there was divorce. And so you have to look at all of that to say, we're going to fight and be strong for our marriage. These are the things that we have to protect our marriage against. And that comes with identifying your morals and your values as well.
Yeah,
Right.
I love
Thank
that.
you. Well,
That was
thank you so
beautiful.
much. Yep. Thank you, so Keisha and everyone. This is our first debut. We really appreciate everybody coming out. What we would hope is that you share it more, but we did make it more intimate for the debut of being especially invite only. But now tell the world, not just women, but men, because you don't want the women to understand and try to articulate it. We can all learn and grow together. Next Sunday, you don't want to miss it. And it'll probably be pre-recorded because we are going to be, some of us going to be together at a mastermind with Marvin Mitchell. We're talking about what Takesha just mentioned, fidelity and faithful. And I guess what that means to you. So we're going to do that and work this week, but really digging deep next week about fidelity and faithful. And as a bonus of those who want to know, I'll give a testimony of how I did meet Takesha and got it right and met her in 2018. But we did have a celibacy journey for that time. I was probably only celibate for 2 or 3 months, maybe before that. Maybe not even 2 or 3, maybe a month. When I met Takesha, probably a month. But I had decided that I wanted to change. Takesha, I believe, was what? How long for you, Takesha? Since we're just say that part, and then we'll say the rest for next week.
Right. It had been about 12 to 13 years that I was celibate.
12. Okay. All right. And we'll talk about another time. We're going to also talk about the overall celibacy thing, not just parts of celibacy. I think is that going to be later on? I guess I'm giving a preview of their different parts of being celibate. So we're talking about totally celibate because we have a total celibacy and then you have parts of celibacy. So we'll dig deeper into that. But again, next week is fidelity and faithful. And you can reach us and subscribe on asofterside.com and join the Purposed and Powerful Podcast Facebook group if you already haven't already with us on Facebook. All right.
Thank you.
Very
That
good,
is our
guys. Thank
time,
you so much.
ladies. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us and trusting us and our stories and our experience to not only navigate you through, but we invite you, as we did tonight, to share your journeys because we can help each other heal.
We are.
Thank you, guys. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. More
Bye-bye.
to come.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.